Hello, welcome back to Live Courageous Podcast episode 3. Healing Leader Within. Today's theme is why healing is required before influence and authority. We are in the Becoming Courageous series. If you're healed from it, you will lead from it. Healing is a must for leaders. Unhealed wounds won't disappear. When you gain influence, they get amplified. There's a connection between healing and leadership. Today, we have a special guest. She's special to me. This is my daughter, Aziza. She is the program manager of Courageous Home Care. She is a social work at heart. She is getting her master's in counseling, and she will be done in August. So welcome, Aziza.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. So, Aziza, you have a question here. When you hear the phrase, healing the leader within you, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so leadership and healing is an everlasting spectrum. It's an everlasting journey. There's constantly things that you may not even know that you need healing from until you encounter a situation to where you realize, I did not handle that the best that I could have. I did not respond to that the best that I could have. And especially with me being in my final semester of school, one of the things that are highlighted the most is making sure that you do the internal work before you start to do external work. Before you start to interact with individuals, do a self-check with yourself first. Are you triggered? Are you leading from a place of hurt? Are you leading from a place of fear? Are you leading from a place of uncertainty? And so checking those things within yourself before making decisions is very important when it comes to leadership. When you have people that look up to you, report to you, depend on you, they're depending on you to lead from a place of sound-mindedness. I think that's one of the most simplistic ways to put it. If I had to put a word for it overall, I think it's important to always do the self-assessments of where am I trying to go? Who do I want to be? What kind of leader do I want to be? How would I want to be led? What are the things that I notice when I'm being led by, leadership in different spaces? And what are things that, and also be willing to reflect on the things that maybe you can take from other people that you learn. Maybe you can do something a little better, tweak something a little better. I know that a lot of times you can be triggered by situations and people, and you can be triggered by situations that bring you back to a place of hurt, or bring you back to a place of a time that you maybe weren't uncertain, maybe where you weren't as strong as a leader. Maybe you were in your beginning stages of leadership and you made mistakes and you had to learn from those mistakes. And so making sure you're always doing self-checks with yourself is very important when you are a leader and people are looking up to you.
Well said. That is so true. And that's why healing has to come first before you have authority, sounds like, from all of that. Very good. So why does healing have to come first? And Aziza has explained a lot of those ground things that we need to work on. Because we are leaders, we still have exposed wounds. We have influences that magnify things from unresolved, as she said. But guess what? God cares more about who you are than who you will lead. So God doesn't anoint dysfunction. He restores it. So this question is for Aziza. When did you first realize healing mattered for your leadership?
I believe once I transitioned into the role that I'm currently in, I got to see the needs of a lot of different people that I worked with. I've worked many jobs in my lifetime, and so I've been managed by different sorts of managers. You have the micro managers, you have the managers that will, get in there with you and they'll, support you on the ground. You have management that's more so of delegation. And so just getting to see different sorts of leadership style. And what I've learned over time is that the way that you lead usually comes from who you are as an individual, the trust that you have in people, do you have a need to feel like you have to be in control of everything? Do you have a control issue that surpasses the needs of the job? Do you find yourself needing to control everything? Do you find yourself questioning people that you have empowered to be in positions? And so just knowing where those things come from, checking yourself. Why am I leading this way? Why am I navigating this way? Why am I speaking to people this way? And then also realizing that we are all, equals. We are all equals in God's eyes. And so, of course, there's hierarchies in organizations. You have, the CEOs, and you'll have the managers, and you'll have things of that nature. But one thing that was really important to me, and what I knew that the needs of my staff is to know that they mattered, and to know that that I was not above them in a way of, importance of, I mean more than you mean in the world, just because I have certain educations or a certain title, knowing that they needed to know that I could relate to them. They needed to know that I could understand them. They needed to know that I was going to trust them to do the jobs that I entrusted them to do. And if you're not capable of the job, then we can always make those adjustments. But leading from a place of certainty within myself, knowing that I'm making confident decisions. So when that I'm implementing things, I can also trust the individuals that are that I have hired on for certain roles. And like I said, if those things have to adjust over time, then adjustments can be made. But overall, just knowing, where does your leadership come from? Is it coming from a place of hurt and control and fear? And that's why you're micromanaging. And that's why you feel the need to control everything. And that's why you feel the need to talk down on people when they don't get things right. And that's why you feel the need, so just knowing, where is this coming from? Is this about the individual that I'm speaking to, or is this about me? Am I projecting onto staff? Am I projecting onto those around me? And just knowing the difference between this is leadership and this is hurt.
That's good stuff, you guys. We have to know the difference. And so when you identify those things, then you can figure out what type of leadership you're under, it sounds like. And so some people, not everybody is a leader, even though God has ordained us all to be a leader, but sometimes you have to develop those characters. So that's really, really good. So have you had a moment where a wound from the past got exposed through your leadership?
It wasn't per se a wound, but it was a deficiency that definitely needed to be adjusted, which could come from a place of hurt. I haven't really deep dived into that too deeply, but I would say I am typically a very outgoing person, very joking, very I have a joke for everything, for every moment, and that is how I'm known to be in my personal life. But when it came to work, I came in, like I said, it was already a current leadership administration there already. And so they were used to certain leadership, and I was fresh out of college. I was 23. I was having to manage people that were in their 40s and their 50s. And they're like, well, who is she? Who is this individual? And so I felt the need to withhold my personality in the workplace, because I wanted to assert myself in the space as a leader that was to be taken seriously. No matter of the age difference, no matter the fact that my mom owns the company, I'm here because I'm qualified. I'm here because I have a job to do. And so over time, people would say, oh, Aziza, she's so serious and she's so stoic, and like, you never know what she's thinking. And, I don't know, like, she's not relatable and things of that nature. And so at first I didn't really, I don't want to say I didn't care, but I think in my mind, my mission was bigger than the people that I was serving. And that mission was to be taken seriously by the staff that I was governing. And so over time, knowing the people that I was working with, they need to see a little relatability. They need to see that, their leadership cares about them. They need to see that, Aziza's going to be fair and right, wrong, or indifferent. She's going to make a decision based off of what's fair. She's going to make a decision based off of policy. It's not going to be personal. Even if there is a personal situation going on, just trying to make sure I'm being attentive with staff that are maybe going through things or, has some difficult things happen with them while they're on the job site, and just really adjusting what I thought that my mission was supposed to be in order to reflect the needs of the individuals that I was serving.
That hits on the point. It just makes sense because, again, there was a duty, it's the call of duty. And when you're a leader, you see those things before other people see them. They do not see it because they're not in that space. And sometimes they don't want to be in that space, so it really makes sense because being a leader, sometimes it's not about being liked. It's about what do I have to do at that moment for the individuals I'm looking after or serving or whatever that looks like, or even your own values. We have to value what we believe in. So that was a really good example of that, Aziza. That's really good. So what we're saying here is that God builds a leader before he builds a platform. We just have to accept it, don't we?
Absolutely.
We have no choice but to accept it.
Yeah.
So this is where we glean. We can glean from this episode healing, right? Because healing isn't weakness, healing is wisdom. And so when God has given us wisdom, we cannot back down on that. We have to really be obedient to our calling. So, sometimes we get people in our lives and we think the best of them, okay? And I've been in this scenario where I had a friend and I thought the best of this individual to come and work, okay? And again, friend, associate, however the case may be. But those people intend to let you down. And those are wounds and scars because you're thinking, I thought the best of this person, but this person just quit, whatever that case may be, okay? And so that is a wound as a leader because you're thinking in your head, what did I do wrong? How could I have prevented this? Could I have changed some things? Or maybe the way I said things, or, you wrestle with yourself. And then it comes to a point you think to yourself, well, maybe I won't do this again. But now I've seen myself do it over and over and over again. And this is not just one scenario, it's multiple scenarios. I've done the same thing, thinking it's going to be different this time. And then you have that wound open up again. You had a scar that came about from that wound, and then you open that wound up again. So it's really interesting as leaders where we think we want to save the world, and that's the type of leadership I was saying I probably am and trying to navigate out of. But we can't save the world, The people that you hold up the most high, they're the ones that sometimes going to let you down.
Absolutely.
So healing is very important, and for me to navigate and try to, see the person who they are and not, oh, this person hurt me and I'm going to not do that again. I'm going to avoid that. I'm not going to get this person in my space. It's really difficult. It really is. All right, Ziza, here's another question for you. Can you share a season where you were leading but still hurting?
Yeah, those seasons are, frequently. I think that the priority that I've molded myself to be as a leader is, I'm here to do a job, that may show up. And I try to check myself in how I'm showing up, because sometimes that means I'm not the most talkative. Sometimes that means I'm not the most, maybe I don't have the jokes today, but I still have a job to do. And in that, no matter what I have going on, it doesn't affect how I am treating people, tabling the things that I have going on in order to serve the needs of the individual that I am working with. I try to be, and I think it's kind of molded into my work personality. I always say, it's either black or it's white, because in the field that we work in, it's a lot of policy based. Of course there's gray when you're dealing with people. And so we gray when it comes to the nuances of dealing with employees and clients and things of that nature. But as far as the things of the job, those are black and white. There's an expectation and I'm here to follow it, and I'm going to leave everything else at the door. And I try to do that in my personal life too. I don't try to take out personal things onto people that I am dealing with. Because that's not fair. That's leading with hurt. That's walking in hurt, is making everyone else feel what you're feeling just because you're hurting. And so just knowing how to be able to compartmentalize those things into, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to do a job, but then I'm also here to, I'm also dealing with something personal, but that has to take a back seat for the greater good of what's going on at the moment.
Very well said. And actually, you have already kind of answered my second question, which was, how did the behavior or that affected your decisions? So you do not take that personal, it sounds like. You have a job to do, you have people to serve. We're going to look at black and white and policies and go from there. And there are some gray areas. We know that working with individuals, and sometimes we have to make a collaboratory effort to figure out what will be good at this time, whatever that situation is. That's good. So, so many of us don't realize we're bleeding on people as leaders that we love. So what does unhealed leadership look like? This is what we're going to dive into. Unhealed leadership often looks like overworked, sometimes some fear-based. You said that before. Some decisions we make is based on fears. And sometimes we want to approve. We want approval from others. So we're seeking that approval. If I say this to this person, they will like me. And I just need to be their friend. And everything will go well. But that's not so. And so again, emotional exhaustion, because we just try our best. All of that pleasing, that people pleasing, is a disease. And that affects us. And then you're exhausted at the end of the day because you've danced on all the tables to try to please people, And so again, unhealed leaders don't mean harm, but the harm still happens. So these, again, this is a question for you. Which of these have you experienced before?
I can definitely say that sometimes you can lead, especially in the field of what we do. You just have so many just crazy and irate situations that happen, and fear can lead you to not want to proceed in something. Let's say you have a client that you're like, whew, you sure we can handle this one? In the past, we haven't been able to, handle people with all of these, behaviors. Are we sure that we can do that? And she's always the pusher, like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And sometimes it works out great, and sometimes it's like, that's what I said. I said at first we couldn't do that, and it happened. I said we couldn't do it, but being aware of when it's fear and when you're making like a tactical, informed decision is important for sure.
Yes, we have many of those stories. So to follow up from the previous question, what warning signs did you ignore?
I would say maybe not fully considering all things considered, I will say. Most of the time you just hear kind of bullet points about things and you're making a decision before you even get the full picture. And so maybe just like, okay, like, did you actually think on that long, or are you just saying no? Did you actually try to see if it can work, or do you just shut it down before you could even explore the options of how it could work? And so sometimes I ignore those warning signs just to get to the final. I'm very like, and what's the bottom line? Like, let's skip the fluff and what's the bottom line? And so not being such in a rush to get to the bottom line and spending more time in the nuances that go into making decisions. And so I'd say the warning signs of me just not taking enough time to process decisions, and knowing like you might just be saying, just shutting things down before you're fully processing all things considered. So I'd say those would be the warning signs that I would kind of push past and just like, no, I think I'm doing this because I think that they just won't be a good fit. Not thinking like the opposite, of the possibilities that you could just be shutting this down because things in the past have been hard with something maybe similar, but not exactly the same.
Yes.
And so, like I said, she, my mom is the pusher. Let's do it. We can do it. Let's go for it. And I'm like, But we also balance each other out in that leadership too, because we're able in the areas that maybe I am leading with fear, you're going to be the goer. In the areas that maybe we should proceed with caution, I'm going to insert that caution.
Sure.
In the areas that she wants to just throw the green flag at. And so it's like we have to be able to slow things down sometimes. Like there are moments that we do have to go ahead and pass on things that don't serve us at the moment, because we have to make sure that we're making holistic decisions for everyone involved. Yes. I'm always thinking about or trying to think about the bigger picture. I have a lot of people that I have to consider and protect and look out for. And it's not just, we just want to, we want to help as many people as we can. But in doing that, who does that affect? Is that going to harm my staff? Is that going to harm my other clients? Is that going to put them at harm's risk because we're just not equipped to handle that sort of thing? And so also being the protector of what we do as well by saying, everything can't be our mission. Everything can't be our ministry. And sometimes the needs of everyone supersedes the needs of what we're trying to do personally.
That is so true. She does keep me in line with that. And again, you're never too old to learn. For the people that think they don't want to hear anything that someone younger is telling you, that's a lie. And that's going to stunt your growth. So that's really good information, Ziza. So again, these characters that she's having, they're not flaws, but they're an invitation to heal. So again, she's identified we need to just look into different avenues of how do we make this work. So I'm going to tell you what healing is and healing is not, okay? So healing is not selfish, okay? It's okay. You have to heal. It's not avoidance of the delay. But what healing is preparation. You have to prepare. You have to prepare your mind, your heart, your soul, your whole being, okay? And because if one's out of line, you cannot function that way. And it's protection. Because the more that we see that we need the healing, we can protect us and other people behind us. It's a generational thing. Because some people ignore that this is just for me. No, you have other people looking at you. It's a lineage of people. So again, healing is a partnership with God. Because God wants us to be whole all the way. Because he made us whole. He's whole. So God heals you privately when you can lead publicly. So Ziza, here's another question for you. How did your definition of healing change over time?
Yeah, so I think in a childlike state, you think of healing as avoidance. So this person hurt me, I'm going to just remove them out of my life. This job doesn't suit me, I'm just going to quit. This thing doesn't serve me anymore, I'm just going to avoid it. And a lot of times in adolescence, like I said, it shows up as avoidance. You think that you're doing the mature thing to do. You're starting to try to get into your adult mind of what do adults do? If it doesn't serve me, move it out my way. And when you get older, you realize like you can't toss everything to the side. Everything can't be removed or shouldn't be removed out of your life. And so knowing that some things require a deeper level of processing, everything, especially when it comes to your personal life, it's not going to be black and white. That's where the gray lives, when there's feelings and emotions and things that are not really fact-based are involved. That's where the gray lives. And so now I know that I can heal from something, and that may just change the capacity that I interact with it in. I can forgive. I can see things from their side. I can overall just try to see is there any reconciliation that can happen, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's and that's any relationship, friendships, family, however, romantic, knowing, is this something that is reconcilable, or is it something that I have to compartmentalize? Like, okay, maybe we aren't as close friends as we were anymore, but now we're, we can see each other. Maybe we can grab a cup of coffee, every so often, or just it just kind of changes versus absolute removal. And then also knowing where those things come from. So when you're younger, you don't really tie or maybe have a full understanding of why you are the way that you are, or why you do some of the things that you do. So also being able to identify where things come from. And that's a lot of the things. One of my theories that I practice in is just like family systems, and also like cognitive based thinking. And I think a lot of who we are as individuals has a lot to do with childhood and things of that nature. And so also being able to assess, why do I respond this way? Why do I get defensive in certain areas? Why do I feel threatened in certain ways? And so also being able to identify and break things down in a deeper way, because everything is not this or that. Sometimes it's a combination of this and that. So knowing the difference between the two, and knowing when to let go and when things can be more so repaired, or when things maybe need to be looked at deeper because you're snapping off on people because you're agitated because you're being triggered by something that happened when you were 10. So it's like, why do you do the things that you do? And realizing that everything isn't everyone else's fault. That sometimes the finger has to be pointed back at ourselves. Sometimes we have to hold up the mirror at ourselves to know, I am not operating in the best capacity that I could. I'm so quick to, now I'm not saying me personally, I'm just saying sometimes we can be so quick to say, well, they did this to me and they did that to me. And, I responded like this because of how they said it to me. And you are in complete control of who you are, how you respond, how you talk, how you interact with individuals. You are in control of that. And so when you start to say, oh, I did this because they did it and they did it and they did it, it requires a level of introspection to know I'm wrong. I shouldn't have said that. Right. I shouldn't have done
self-check.
I shouldn't have done that. I could have said that differently. Or how would I want someone to have said that to me? How would I want someone to communicate something to me? And I try to be very mindful of the things that I say, because that's also healing too, knowing I identified it, but now I have to fix it. Now I have to put the work in to try to change those things. And so after identification, that's where the healing really comes into play. You have to figure out how you're going to rectify that problem. How am I going to not keep doing that? How am I going to not keep, lashing out on people when they're just asking me simple questions? How am I going to, make sure that I'm not just being short-tempered and, just things of that nature. So that's kind of how healing is that surface level, and more so a lot of introspection and reflection.
Yeah. That's really good, because sometimes people do not want to take accountability for when they say things. They push it underneath the rug and hoping it'll go away. But it is a pattern of theirs. And the good thing when you say reflection is going back to, did I really say that? How would I have felt if somebody said that to me? So that's what a good leader should do, go back and just reflect. Why did I say it that way? Was I triggered by something that somebody said in the past, and that just hit a nerve, and then I just go off on that person, which is not right, because that person that person probably didn't even know why you're going off on them. And so that is a good example of coming back to center. It's like everything comes back to center, where you need to be, where God wants us to be. He wants us aligned, because He's straight up and down. He wants us to be straight up and down and not all over the place. That's chaos. That's chaotic. Very good. Yeah. So what does it look like partnering with God in your healing?
Yeah, that's daily prayers. I attend church regularly. Trying to get better at being in my word. And just including Him in the conversations. A lot of times we try to add God in after we've already made our decision, versus before we even start to think about a decision, and doing a better job at putting Him in the beginning versus the middle or the end. And then also knowing that I would like to be led by God. I don't want to do the leading. And so also aligning myself to be aligned with what He has for me, and then be open to listening. If you already have your mind made up, God can't tell you anything. If you've already made up your mind what He's going to say or what you want Him to say, and you're operating in that capacity, You leave very little room for God to change and move you and be able to align you in the direction that you need to go in. And so it's important to kind of also keep that self check too. Like, is this something that I want, or is this something that God said that he wanted from me, or that God said that I should be doing? And then knowing the difference as well, because like I said, when you've already made up your mind what you want the answer to the prayer to be, you might just be operating that capacity. God, show me a sign. If I look outside and the sun is out, mind you, it's 1 p.m.
Yeah.
That means I'm supposed to proceed. So it's like, if you try to find signs and create signs, it's like, you don't need God if you're going to if you're creating the signs and wonders, So also making sure that you're aligning yourself, like, was that really direction from God, or was that what I already predetermined that I wanted for myself?
That's pretty good. We do make up our own signs sometimes, don't we? Just so we can get what we want. It's not a good thing. That's really good. So again, it sounds like healing is part of leadership training. We have to train ourselves so we can lead others the right way, but we have to heal first so we can lead accordingly. That's really good. So we have 3 steps to the healing framework. So we're going to name the wound, because people don't think that that's a wound, but it's a wound, and it penetrates deep, especially when somebody says something and it triggers you. That's a wound, and it's not healed. And then we're going to invite God into it, and that's what you was talking about, just asking God to lead you. And then we're going to lead from wholeness and not hurt. Again, we have a question for you, Aziza. What is hardest for you to name?
I would say sometimes naming the wound. You can kind of know the area of maybe where it's coming from, but being honest enough to actually say what it is a whole nother layer of healing. I talk to my clients all the time, and a lot of times we're dancing around the issue, and I'll let you do that for about a session or 2. But by the 3rd one, I'm going to say, like, okay, so where do you feel this is coming from? What are your fears surrounding whatever the topic is? And when they start talking about their fears, we start to kind of chip away at where the wound is. It's like, okay, your fear is failing. Your fear is being lonely. Your fear is not being loved. Your fear, and it's like, where did that come from? And it's like, well, I was like, when was the first time you felt that? And we're chipping, and we're chipping. And like, well, I think when I was in elementary school, and I remember always feeling like the second place, the second chosen. I remember not being the priority. It's like, okay, 2nd grade. Do you remember anything before that? I think, when I was I was in 1st grade, my dad, he made me feel X, Y, and Z. I never felt like the chosen child. And so you get to, and finally saying it is usually very emotional for a lot of people, because saying what hurts you is hurtful. And so finally getting to the root of exactly what the wound is a healing process in itself, because once you say it, it's real and it's out in the air. And now it's like, what do I do with that? Where do I go from here with that? How do I navigate from here now that I've just said out loud the big bad wolf that I haven't even said to myself? I know what I felt. I know that it hurt me when I was in these different situations. I know that I'm triggered when I feel like I'm not the priority choice, but I don't know where that comes from. But to say, I feel this way because my mom never made me feel like I was the first one she would ever choose in her life. Once you say that, it's like, it's out there. And that's a hurtful statement to say. And then we also have to face the reality of, is there truth in that statement? So then you're also processing the hurt of, it was true. My mom didn't prioritize me when I was a child. She had boyfriends and she would choose them first. And then, I'd never felt seen or loved. And my cheerleading game practices and my mom's not there. All the other moms are there. And it's like, now I have to address mom. Now I have to think about, what does mom mean to me now that I'm an adult? Now that I am a different person and I'm still finding myself being triggered by friends canceling on me. I'm finding myself being triggered by people telling me that they can't come to things that are important to me. Now I'm triggered by people telling me that, I don't know, they didn't tell me happy birthday. Whatever the case may be, it's this big for you. So naming the wound can be very, very hard to process. So I would say that would be the one.
That is good stuff. So in your counseling, people, have you seen they find freedom after they say these things?
It's freeing for a lot of people. It's usually, I call it like the turning point breakthrough that we finally get to. Once we have the honesty out there, we can address that. If we don't know what's even causing us hurt, it's not a whole lot that we can kind of get to or get through until we get it to it. So a lot of times it's free. It's emotional usually for a lot of people, but after it's out there, it's like, okay, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So let's walk through that together, because now that we have the hurtful thing out there, you've already been carrying it. You've been carrying it subconsciously by yourself.
Yeah.
But now that it's out there, let's talk about what that means and what that looks like. And so that's where the freedom comes into play, when they realize I don't have to keep carrying this, or at least not carrying it in the same ways that I've been carrying it.
That's good. That's really good. So here's another question for you again. What did inviting God into this look practically?
I think it created a sense of identity. So when you are countering those hurts and you're countering those things that you've told yourself in your life or in your mind, it's like, well, who does God say that I am? What did God tell me to do? What did God say? What does his word say when it relates to certain things like this? What did he say to other people in the Bible when it related to situations like mine? So knowing and comparing, if you're thinking, oh, I am not smart, not pretty, things of that nature. But then the Bible says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. You are all these things. So you start to take the things that yourself is telling you, and you start to counter it with the Bible and what God is telling you, and what God and who God says that you are. And so some of these things you can immediately cast out as a lie, because our word and our living word says the complete opposite or otherwise, or it says black and white exactly what it is and what it isn't. And so being able to challenge those things with what the word says, and knowing what's truth and what's a lie that the devil wants you to believe about yourself.
That's really good. So you guys hear that? That's what we need to put in practice on a daily. So Aziza, you've given us some great nuggets, I call, for living as a leader and having to deal with the internal healing. That's what it sounds like. So we're going to challenge you guys today. You need to identify what that wound looks like. And once you identify that, again, sometimes it doesn't take you by yourself to figure this out. You may have to talk it through with a counselor, as she's doing with her clients. And then you can see what's your next step, because you always have to have a step, okay? Especially when you've identified this. And then do little at a time. It's not a big project where you're going to knock it down the same time you speak about it. And it's going to hurt. It's guaranteed it's going to hurt. But you're going to feel that freedom as she spoke about. And if you didn't have God in your life, you need to, we encourage you to have him lead you through all of this. Ziza, this has been a pleasure. Yeah. This topic was amazing. And thank you for your expertise. And we are going to work on these. This is all of us. It's not just you guys out there. I'm working on things myself. For this week, your challenge is to sit back, see what your wounds are like. And thank you for listening. This is Live Courageous Podcast. And Aziza, we really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me.
God bless.
God bless you all.